We're on the platform here. This is session 17, I think. Okay. I wrote some things down earlier today. I think
Did you
now,
retain any of them?
huh?
Did you retain any
The
of them?
page did. So the
Do you need
good,
me to
the
get anything?
huh?
Do you need me to grab your notebook?
No, I got it right here.
Oh,
So on the earlier platforms, I've been pretty much been going like, um, what's that called? When you do things that aren't,
off script,
yeah, what's that? Or improv,
Yeah.
kind of, whatever.
ad lib.
Nah. Anyway, I got some notes. They're really just thoughts, and
Let's hear 'em.
well, before we get into all that, yeah. So we're here and we're cooking, man. How's everything on your end of the spectrum?
Good. Yeah, things are good. I mean, still a constant, work in progress. I am battling a upper respiratory infection, so if I wheeze out of here, that's why. But it's funny. I'm reading a book right now, and it's called "The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck."
I've heard of that.
Yeah. So
Who wrote that?
Mark Manson, I think.
This
But-
is like circa 2008.
Don't know. So anyway, I'm only in like the first two chapters, but one of the things that he said that I read today was that no matter where you are in your life or what you do, you're gonna have crap to deal with. So put yourself in a position where the crap you're dealing with you enjoy,
Yeah.
and that really resonates with me because I'm at a place right now where, like right now, my major stress instead of finances is schedule.
Having too much money to spend.
Yeah, yeah. Like, where do I spend it all?
That's all how you look at it, right?
Yeah. So now now that I have work and finances, now it's managing and schedules, and so I was working. I was out in the yard working till 10:30, literally with a headlamp on, weed whacking, to try to get everything done. Kids, work. I was painting today. Right there.
Oh, yeah. Got some residue.
So with that comes stress, and it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm starting to be able to master that. Like, okay, I can't do more than I can do.
Yeah.
And if somebody's unhappy with timing, nothing I can do about that.
Yeah. Time, scheduling, not putting too much on your plate.
Yeah.
In the book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, he actually has a section of the book where he breaks down a schedule, but it's one of the more ridiculous schedules. It's like the schedule of a CEO at the office. It's like it's broken down literally by half-hour blocks. Like this half hour from this half hour, this is happening. It's like that's pretty intense. But when you're the CEO of a company, I think that's probably necessary. But look, man, I hate one thing. I hate is feeling rushed, feeling that I have to that my schedule is so packed and I got to be everywhere all the time, and I can't stand that. I hate anxiety. I'm just not. I know somebody that will always arrive late and will always. And oh man, it's so interesting when you don't know somebody that well and you make the observation, like this observation in particular, that man, they always show up late. They always must be doing so much. Like it almost comes off as a good quality because it's like, hey man, they're always late, and that just means that they're very productive and they're always busy. And but I also look at it as, hey, they're always late. They don't know how to manage their time. And then when I got to know this person more and saw them on the other side, I realized that this was 100% self-inflicting, like consciously, not, oh, I don't know what time it is because I'm so busy. It was, hey, I'm not busy right now, but I'm gonna wait till the last minute to go do this thing. And I think some people might actually enjoy being constantly busy. And I remember reading somewhere, uh, don't be busy for the sake of being busy. I think that's a good lesson. I remember reading that, like, dude, I really, that resonates with me because, like I said, I don't like being anxious. I don't like running late, and because part of running late, you're anxious.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just my thoughts on it. But so time and schedule.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what made you pick up that book?
My buddy John Deemer read it and said it was just absolutely fascinating, and he gave me a couple principles from it, and they are in line um with where we're going. Like managing what we care about, and not letting like even in the first two chapters he's talked about like if you get super upset. So imagine like it's already getting annoying, the title, because he says fuck like every third sentence.
A selling point.
Yeah, it's like my goodness. But so imagine that giving a crap, you let's just say, and I'm just using this is my own analogy of the book, but let's just say that you have 100 a day, okay, and if you spend them all, like you're gonna be in a pretty crappy mood because spending them means like you got upset, like irritated or angry because something didn't go your way, so you give a crap about that, like and so let's just say you have 100 a day. One of the points that he made was if you go in and the cashier does something that upsets you, or you don't get your fast food as fast as you want, etc., and it like really gets to you and pisses you off, it's because you don't have something more important to give a crap about, so you give a crap about that. And so it's like know what you want to really care about, and then do that. It's just super interesting, like how this is all working out, because we're talking about the power of belief, the law of attraction, the immutable laws, the invisible laws that operate the universe, and these things just keep coming our way, like opportunities and learning. In this book is going to be great. I feel it so far. But 2 days ago, like I'm on a huge deadline for painting some work that we did on an exterior of the house. The rain has killed us. Okay, so I call my dad to borrow a power washer from the get-go to start, and he's like, it's broken. So I go out and buy a new one, and I read some reviews, and I buy this Ryobi, and it's pretty cheap. I mean, it's in the middle of the market, and I get it. Have my guy power washing the house, and 3 hours into it, the engine blows or the pump motor blows, one of the two. So I get there, and he's like, "Hey man, look, I'm sorry, but this is this blew up, and I can't get it working and whatever." And so I just started doing this, and I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." So I didn't even affect me. Like I was just like, "Dude, there's nothing I can do about that." Yeah. And I was thinking about it. I was like, "Man, now we had to put it together, because it doesn't come. I mean, it's not hard to put it together. It's probably 15, 20 minutes of time putting pieces together, etc." And I was like, "Man, now I got to take this back, take it back to the store, get a new one, and then come back, put it back together, and we're going to be out another half a day on starting." So I was really excited that it didn't affect me. And then 2 days ago, no, Friday, I don't know if you remember where you were when this, like, the rain came, but dude, it was supposed to miss New Albany, and it looked like it was gonna, and the radar said it was gonna. And so I spent 2 hours putting tape and plastic down around the deck so that I could spray that day. And about half hour before I was done putting plastic down, it started raining. And I was like, the tape's not going to stick, you know? So everything I just did.
Oh man.
And then I couldn't spray, you know? So not only could I not prep, I couldn't spray. And I was like, okay, let's wrap it up
Yeah.
and go home.
Yeah.
And so it's cool because all of this learning and what we're doing and seeking truth and whatnot is it's effective, you know. So it's cool because you can't do anything about the rain. Like you can't do anything about what you just did,
Yeah.
and so why give your care to it, your anxiety, your anger to that when
Yeah.
that's energy that you're using and it affects you and breaks you down. And so it's just like, know when you can't control the situation
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
and be okay with that.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a quote. I don't know how it goes, but it's something along the lines of, don't get upset over everything you have no control over. But that's the thing too. It's also recognizing what we don't have control over.
Mm-hmm.
We got to spend time to reflect on that, because what don't we have control over? And maybe some things that we don't think we have control over, we actually do. But it's just that just is what's required is to sit and really ponder that. And man, that's why I love when Thoreau says in his book, Walden, he says somewhere along in there somewhere, it's one of this, it stuck with me, is like, contemplation is a luxury. And I'm telling you, that is so powerful, because I completely understand the value of that, just to be able to sit and think, just to sit down and be in complete thought. And that's actually what I did earlier today. I got my notebook and I just started writing some thoughts down, and just be able to sit and think, because we get very busy and hurried, and it doesn't allow for us to think about, what do I have control over? What don't I have control over?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, everything that we've been talking about for the last 5-10 minutes, it reminds me today we're talking about schedule, talking about anxiety, talking about what we can control. And today I knew that I was going to try to finish what I started on that paint deck, because it wasn't supposed to rain today. So I told the homeowner, because I left everything up there, I was like, look, I'm going to come back tomorrow if the weather permits and my schedule permits. So I woke up today, have the kids, so wanted to give them some quality time. But in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, at some point I need to go and do this job. I don't know when, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's a priority. Like, I want to get it done. So, like around 1:30, 2 o'clock-ish, kids were fed. They were playing with some toys. They were content. And I had an opportunity to leave. It was like, okay, I can go do this. I was like, you know what? I just want to sit in my Eno for a half hour. So I set it up and just chilled in it for a good 30 minutes and just relaxed.
Yeah.
And wasn't tired, so I didn't nap. I just sat there and played with my phone, researched some stuff, and it was relaxing. And it was cool because I had something to do, that was like pressing, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna chill.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great investment, huh? The Eno.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I love it. So, I listened to a quick little talk about It was a gentleman. He was like a CEO. He was a billionaire CEO, and it was interesting, his perspective, because he talks about how at his level of responsibility and the amount of finances he has, he says problems never go away, because you're just at another level.
Yep.
And so he the analogy he used was like being in the jungle. He said, I like being in the jungle, but it's like that. It's like you go in the jungle and you have to fight off animals, and you have to climb around trees and avoid all these obstacles and find paths and whatnot. And so he says that never goes away. So I found that interesting. But yeah.
It's so funny. I mean, I said that because Mark Manson said that, in the book, that you always have crap. Just you want to be in crap that you like dealing with.
Yeah.
So same thing you just said that guy said, and it's interesting because you said jungle, and it made me think like with hammocking, like enoing. One of the biggest worries or fears or whatever that make like the crap that you got to deal with at night is animals on the ground, and so you want to put it up high, right? So you avoid that anxiety of that, but now you have the anxiety of like falling out, or the breaking and you falling down, and so you avoid one like anxiety or one crap that you don't have to deal with anymore. And now you're in another one, and it's like, well, I can deal with falling down.
You weigh it out. I can deal with a broken back, but not with a bobcat biting my face off.
The possible broken back, but the inevitable bobcat.
The inevitable bobcats, right? Yeah, so that's interesting, man. I think it's, man, I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be a billionaire CEO, but yet. But one thing that, one thing that I've learned and that I make sure to remember is to be able to do that, sit in a hammock and relax, and just because I think that I just know that the best times for receiving information and ideas and peace and calmness is during times of stillness. At least the way I am. It may be different.
Science would back that up. That like, is it theta?
Yeah, like theta.
Yeah.
Waves.
Your frequencies is most receptive to new information when you're in a calm, relaxed. I think it's theta.
Yeah, the theta. And it's always they say it's you get in the theta phase right as you're kind of asleep, but you're still conscious enough to at least retain the information. But so well, anything interesting topics? Because look, man, we've through the platform so far, and that's the thing, we need to talk about like where we want to take this next. We were supposed to have a couple people come on, but people are very reliable because their schedules are very open. But I think that we could have some people come on, have some talks, get some more people involved. That'd be cool. And evolve whichever direction that is necessary or organically evolving. But I think the talks are cool. Yeah. So I guess I'll bust out my notes here, and we can, if this sparks any conversation, cool. If not, then great. Here, hold this for a second.
Gotcha. Okay. Man, we're talking about a lot about mental health.
Start reading this.
The power of what?
Focusing.
Oh.
It's okay.
I like how you have to focus on the word focus. It's just
that is so
clever.
Yes. Oh man. So look, these are random thoughts, and maybe it'll be beneficial. Maybe they'll be too random, but maybe it'll spark some interesting conversation that we could blow the next 20 minutes with, or 15. I can see you're getting a little tired there. All right, so tell me what you think about these first two sentences. Here is why conflict is engaging. Conflict is a promise that something and or someone is in a process of change. So I tried writing a script one time that had no conflict. And we sat around a table and read it, and everybody said this really sucks because there's no conflict. Why do you think we're attracted to conflict? Especially in, let's just say, movies. But any story that's probably worth watching or good has conflict. Why do you think that? Do you agree with that? And if so, why? And if not, why? Because you'd probably be wrong if you said you don't agree with it.
I agree with it as a blanket statement. I consciously, right? Like that's a big thing. What I just said, consciously.
It's a big word.
Yeah. I consciously do not like conflict in movies. So when
You go to movies.
Yeah.
You're an avid movie goer, and you were a big time avid movie goer like years ago. But how many movies do you average a week, or let's just say bi-weekly?
one,
Okay, so you watch 2 movies a month, let's say. All right, you go to the films. Do you get engaged?
yeah, I do.
This is an interrogation, by the way.
Yeah, I do. So, like, I guess it depends on what type of movie. With, like, action, I mean, what kind of action movie would you have without a conflict? Okay. So, for example, I saw Hot Shot. I think I saw it's called Hot Shot with Seth Rogen. Anyway, it's whatever Seth Rogen's new movie is, Long Shot or Hot Shot or something like that. And it's a pretty much a love, like a love comedy. What do they call those? Rom-com, yeah. And I find myself asking this in every movie that I see that is a romance. It's like, why do they have to have the breakup session? You know, like everything is going so great, and then you just wait for it. You're like, if you go to movies, you just wait for it. You're like, okay. And you try to think. Like I was sitting there watching the movie, and I was like, I wonder what is going to be the drama between them. You know, like what's going to happen that's, you know, makes them think it's done, and then something happens and they come back together. Yeah. Every romance movie. Yeah. And it's like I say that almost at every, like consciously I say that in almost every romance movie that I see. It's like, why can't it just like that drama doesn't have to happen, right? Like that is such a like bullcrap thing that they just throw in there. It's like the movie would have been fine without that.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Well, for me,
Would you have? Let's say that because that's an interesting question, because you have to really, you wouldn't really know unless if you saw a movie, because you could say, man, this is actually really boring, and I think that would be sure with 99% people who went and who go to see movies. It's if that conflict isn't there, it's a boring movie, and maybe some people don't understand why. But here's the thing, man. It all goes back to your neurons and brain activity. Like what stimulates those chemicals that make you either pump adrenaline or feel anxiousness and whatnot. So,
well, my first thought to one of your original questions is that maybe it's the law of attraction, and what is it? What is the law that is like so below as above, so within is out? It's not polarity, is it? So anyway, my point in that is maybe maybe people in general like that because they desire it subconsciously, because you know
they desire. So, what are they desiring? Drama, which is what? Conflict?
yeah.
So, what's conflict though? Like, if we were to reduce it down, what is conflict? What is it?
I would say opposition.
So, like two opposing forces.
Yes.
Like you see, like a.
And they don't have to be. They don't have to be the same species. So when you said two forces, yeah, it could be a human and a tree falling in the road.
Right.
You know, we have some conflict here. Now I don't know what the textbook definition is. I'll look it up. But that's what I think is like, and I don't agree with the statement that you wrote. Be, just
Why is conflict engaging?
no the first.
Here's why conflict is engaging. Conflict is a promise that something and or someone is in a process of change.
Yeah, I don't think that just because people have conflict that they change. But maybe you meant it like temporarily or whatever to resolve it. But like,
Well, here's the thing. Maybe I should have reworded it as conflict is something and or someone that is in a process that could or could not make change. So
promise of potential. Or
yeah, maybe promise of potential of a different outcome than what's been um,
to come into collision or disagreement. Be contradictory, at variance or in opposition.
Yeah, so here's the thing, man. It doesn't matter if it's a love story or an action movie or a drama or a horror or whatever. I'm telling you, man. And here's the thing. There's a book. Can you grab that white book right there? So here's what's interesting. This is a book. Now, screenwriters will know about this, maybe, and if not, then they're not screenwriters. But there's a book that came out maybe in the mid 2004 or 5, I don't know. Zack Snyder wrote this book, and it's called Save the Cat, the last book on screenwriting that you'll ever need. Huh?
Blake Snyder?
Yeah. What'd I say? Zack Snyder? Yeah, Blake Snyder. I think Zack Snyder's a director or something. But so here's the thing. This book is very generic. It doesn't actually get into the beautiful, harmonious structure that makes a screenplay really good. But here's what he does. He's only done like 2 movies. This guy, he's like really a nobody. But when he wrote this book, everybody went and bought it because what he did was he talks about the structure of screenwriting, the structure of movies, how movies are structured. So every movie now you see is it operates using the basic 3-act structure, and he comes out with what's called the Blake Snyder beat sheet, and he comes up with 15 beats, and beats is like pretty much like a turn of events or like some kind of change in plot or something. It's some kind of change, and he probably uses different terminology to describe it, but he watches like tons of movies, and he says this: you will find these beats, all these beats in every single movie. They may not come in that precise order, but you'll see that they have all this stuff. And he breaks it all down. And when you watch movies, this is why I can't watch movies anymore like I used to, because of that engineered structure that takes a lot of the fun out of movies. And so one of the things is you'll notice how many points there are where change or conflict is necessary. He actually says, look, if you don't have a movie that doesn't have conflict, forget it. I mean, any screenwriter will tell you that. If you don't have conflict in your story, it's done. Like, you have no chance, because we're primitive people, and we need that super basic emotion to keep us interested, even in the most intellectual or romantic story. If there's no conflict, we just don't care. We're not engaged. That's why in every story you get the premise, you get a setting, right? You get your character, the world that they're in, and then how they're operating in their world. And then in the first 15 minutes, and he even has it broken down by page. He's like, on page 18, this needs to happen. And my friend, who's a screenwriter, or thinks he is, he hates it because he's like, man, I can't stand. There's no way I would do that. It's like, dude, you would have a better chance of selling a script if you followed this book precisely, because especially if you're working in Hollywood, they look for those exact things because it works time and time and time again. So by page 15, the character has to face a conflict. If it's not there, there's no story. And so Yeah, so save the cat.
Well, then, so yeah, it sounds like, and almost like you worked backwards with how you wrote that and formulated that because what you said is true to if there is change, it comes from conflict. You know what I mean? It's the result of conflict. So that is
'cause what necessitates change? Why would anybody change? Um, I mean, think about it. Why does anybody change? And for like, think when you or me or anybody else out there wants to change is because we've probably entered into some kind of conflict.
yeah, even if it's with our own, consciousness, like, oh, I don't like being at this place or, having this or doing this or this social life. So even though it's not a conflict, maybe to like objectively, like if you aren't happy with it, then it is a conflict of yourself.
Right.
So then you change. But I've just been hearing a lot lately to that point that you, I forget, it's been phrased, I've heard it in different phrases, different terms, but the point is that you grow in adversity, you grow in conflict, you grow in struggle, you grow in like learn.
What's growth?
It could be physically, it could be spiritually, it could be emotionally, mentally, intellectually, any one of those. So you don't grow when you're like at a happy state or at a good state. Like you learn the most when you're going through, like I one of the things was you learn more when you go through a problem. I forget how it was termed, but
So think about that real quick. Attributing it to movies, we won't watch a movie because we're not watching anybody grow.
yeah.
So when you're watching a romance and then the love relationship falls apart, it's like, well, now what's going to happen? What is now going to happen that is going to make this couple grow? I mean, you think about it like that.
Well, and that's where I was going with it. Now, I don't agree with the romance thing because I think what
Because you're a romantic and you want a relationship to be perfect,
Yeah.
and you hate when movies are like, "Hey, things are going great. Things are going great. Now let's just screw it all up." It's like when you put a puzzle together. It's like you put a puzzle together. You put a puzzle together, and then you're done. And then what do? You mess it all up. Or like when kids build something,
yeah.
especially like a little boy, he'll build something. When he's done, he'll just knock it all over. So
Yeah.
is it in our nature? Is it in our nature to have a desire to produce chaos
Well,
or to destroy?
but before I answer that, I just want to finish this thought with what you said, that it's the promise of change. I think that is why we like conflict in movies, because we get excited for the person to overcome the conflict or whatever. So our hope is in the end resolution. And you can't hope in an end resolution if there isn't a beginning conflict. Yeah.
That's why, according to the screenwriting structure, if you don't have a setup that eventually creates a conflict by page 15, then you're going to lose the reader, the interest of your reader, because it's a primitive thing. We are attracted to conflict, and you're probably right with that. Because look, you could be attracted to conflict for not necessarily positive reasons. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go in and start an argument because I like conflict. Like it does something for me. It keeps me energized, and the adrenaline gets pumping. But that's not a positive conflict. So you can't say, hey, all conflict is positive. But what were you gonna say? Finish your thought.
Well, I was just thinking about how you could say like I would say that the majority of us, and again, that's a statement I can't make with my limited knowledge, but I would say that we do desire to see drama at some level, subconsciously, and that I don't think that applies to everybody always. But I'll give you an example that just irritates me is, somebody I know, and I've brought this up before, but somebody I know watches Judge Judy, I think it is. And every so often when I'm over, I'll see Judge Judy in the background, I'll hear it. And I want to blow my brains out. It's so sickening, man. It's the same thing with like, I forgot, like Dr. Phil, that's all that stuff.
How about that?
Maury.
No, the really good guy, the best of them all. He was like a Chicago senator or something at one point, or some kind of. He goes in politics. What's his name? The one that like the nastiest movies will put him on, and because Jerry Springer.
Yeah, that's.
You see the people that go on there, right? Not to judge humans, because everybody's a beautiful child of God, but man, when you're in that mental zone where you're attracted to low level drama, that's the kind of shows that get produced.
I would say, I mean, this probably isn't fair because I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist by any means, but I would say you should probably look into why you like watching those shows if you like watching those shows.
Yeah, are you asking me?
No. I'm saying that I would be concerned to some level if you're watching those shows and you don't even realize.
Well, I could tell you from my personal perspective, my personal experience, because I used to watch that show when I was younger.
Yeah.
I would watch that and be like, yeah, Jerry. And then as I got older, and I realized I don't want any drama in my life because it's just destructive. It does nothing of positivity. It's nothing positive for me. I stopped watching it. And once you stay on that path, then you start to become very aware of what's dramatic. And look, dramatic. And things like Jerry, what's his name, Springer, and Judge Judy, those are produced for entertainment purposes. But here's what's scary is when we think something like the news is for our benefit. We watch the news and say, I want to be informed. I want to know what's going on. But I start to think, wait a minute, what if this was intentional? The news wants to be dramatic to create chaos within us. And so here's the thing, man. You want to talk about law of attraction? You want to talk about all that? Think about what's going on in your head that makes you attracted to that kind of chaos. Your worldview your default state must be that of chaos, and you are subconsciously attracted to it because misery loves company, right? Like attracts like. If you got drama going on in your life, you want others to be in dramatic situations so that you don't feel isolated, or that you feel like, hey man, this is just how the world is. So that's scary. That's super scary, because next thing you know, you're living this life of misery, but you think it's all right. Let me share one more thing. Check this out. You want to talk about brainwashing?
Yeah.
Okay, look. Let's just say that evolution is real. Let's just say that. Okay, forget that thought. Check it out. Does a tiger in the wilderness want drama? Does it seek it, or is drama a part of its life because it's in a world where you just have to survive? And so I see things all the time. Like, okay, like today we were playing disc golf, and one of the people I was playing with threw his disc somewhere, and we saw a frog, and the frog saw us, and it freaked out. It had to run, and it was like bouncing off the logs, and it tumbled, and it took off, and that that's everyday reality for that animal. Is that it's in every animal. It's like everything in the animal kingdom is so on edge because you don't know what's going to come out and kill you.
Yeah.
And what an awful existence that is. And if it's true that we came from monkeys and that we walked around, trying to just scrape and find food and just survive, and at any minute there's a saber-toothed tiger coming at you, or or whatever animal, and you're always on edge, and you got your club, and you're just like constantly freaked out that something's going to kill you, and even your own species. So, man, if that's true, then it's almost as if that trigger that makes us get adrenaline is still a part of our biology. Like they talk about the reptilian part of the brain. And so if you're attracted to drama, a drama that you would have received living in the wilderness as a caveman, but now you're no longer a caveman, you're a home dweller in a super modern society, but you're still seeking that drama, then how advanced are you really as a creature? You're not really that advanced. You're a monkey still, and you're still at a low level of consciousness. And so what I wanted to say is I forget why we got to talking about that, but here's the point I wanted to say when I first was talking. Not at the beginning of this recording, but just a couple minutes ago.
Yeah. Get there.
It took 42 minutes to get to what I wanted to say. Okay, so look, here's what's scary. All right, talking about talking about the comedy, or the romantic comedy, and you're saying like, man, why does every movie, these romantic comedies or these romance movies, have to hit a extreme? It has to get to the point where they call it the man. I'm gonna read you this real quick, and then I'll get to my point. I want to read you this because you're gonna be like, huh. Oh man. Okay, hold on. I want to get to the beat sheet. So I want to get to. Hold on a second.
Dude.
Just hold on, man. Hold on. Hold this for a second. Hit the record button. It's 12:37 at night. Okay, check this out. All right, look. It's all right. We're almost done. So Blake Snyder's beat sheet. If you're an aspiring screenwriter, or you are a screenwriter and you don't know about this, read it, because if you're having a hard time structuring your story, you could just follow this and it'll work. And I was skeptical, but it does. All you got to do is read this book, watch movies, and you'd be like, dude, there it is. And they may not come in this exact order, but they all happen. All these beat sheets, all these beats happen. So, okay, so number one, opening image. It's like the image that gives us the idea of what the story is gonna, how it's gonna.
Let me ask you this real quick. Is by reading this gonna make me not want to see movies?
I don't think so, because you'll forget it, and you don't want to write a screenplay. But if you read this book, it would change it. But you'll forget this pretty quickly. So, opening image, theme stated, setup, catalyst, debate, and I won't go into what these all mean. But what I'm trying to get to is break into two: B story. Fun and games. Fun and games is the promise of the premise. Like for example, that movie you saw the trailer, and it was what? Two people driving a car, doing something, trying to solve something, running around, whatever it was. Who cares? But the promise of the premise is you're finally being given what you thought the story was going to be about. And they're having fun. It's called Fun and Games because it's the moment where it's like, hey, I can't wait to hear the funny jokes and in the scenario, and that's where you're going to be receiving. So then there's a midpoint. The midpoint is that point where things start to turn. It's where, hey, everything's going good, and then something happens where it's not good anymore. It's that breakup in the story. Then the bad guys close in, which is the moment where whoever the opposition was is now they're starting to win the battle. The antagonist, the bad guy, right? So that's the bad guys close in. They looks like they're gonna win now. Then the all is lost moment. That's the moment, and this happens in every single movie, especially the romance rom coms and the comedies. The all is lost moment is where your lead character, the protagonist, the guy you're rooting for, gets to a point in the story where it seems like there's nothing can help him now. It's like the lowest of the low, and then the dark night of the soul that goes along with it, and then there's a turnaround. Then it's like, oh, there's a new emergence of hope, and things start to, and then everything ends well. Okay, so what I wanted, the point I wanted to make was this. Okay, subconscious programming and brainwashing. Let's think about this. That's the theme here. So I see people conduct their relationships in a way that's very similar to movies. Like you said, man, why can't people just have really, really good relationships? You know why? I don't think they know how. And I think the reason why is because of what we've been exposed to growing up in the world of entertainment and media, is that I think subconsciously we don't think that we're supposed to be happy or to have good relationships or the thing to sail smoothly. I think it's like, hey, I'm so used to the structure of movies, and I'm not just saying movies, but think about books, movies, and just everything. Yes. And so you think, hey man, somewhere along the way things are gonna screw up. It's going to be bad. I'm expecting it. And so then we start talking about the law of attraction and what you call into your life, what you focus on. Man, I see relationships all the time where couples fight about the stupidest thing. And I think some people think that that's just how you do it. Like, this is how I'm supposed to conduct myself in a relationship because that's how I know how a relationship is supposed to be conducted. I don't have any other information to guide me. It's like, look, and people are quicker to create dramatic situations in a relationship. And so I think that is not a coincidence. I think that is just deeply rooted in the subconscious. It's saying, hey, drama's on the way, and this is how you're going to respond to it, and feel good when drama occurs because that's how things are supposed to be. And we don't talk to ourselves like that, but subconsciously, man, think about what neurons are being triggered, what reward neurons when you're like, hey, we're in a dramatic situation here. I like this love-hate thing because it's exciting. It makes things like we get on edge again, and we start to like get all emotional and fight for each other again, and it's needed to build a relationship. And hey, look, I'm with you. I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that needs to happen in movies or in real life, but it does. And I think it's because that it tickles our primitive emotions, man. I think it's a thing of primitivity, honestly.
Well, in closing, keyword closing, when you were talking, the thing that stuck out the most to me is this verse in the Bible, and I believe it's in 1 John, but I'm not positive. But it says that love overlooks a multitude of wrongs. And I remember reading that when I got it, like, you know, I may have read it a couple times before I got it, like it sunk into my soul. And unfortunately, I haven't started applying that until this season of my life. But man, I think that is the key. That verse is the key to everything you're saying. Because when you love someone, not just romantically, but when you love someone and they wrong you, there's so many variables that go into the drama that you create or seek, because expectations. So when you put expectations on people unfairly and you don't get what you want, B, the expectation of we want to be right. So when you say, oh my gosh, subconsciously, when you say, oh, this isn't going to go well, this is, there's going to be some drama, you're looking for it because you want it to happen. And then you can be the creator of it and be like, yep, see, I knew it. You know, like I knew something was going to happen. He was going to do this or he was going to say that. And you were bent on, you know, finding or manifesting that drama on your own. And also just because of entitlement, I think has a lot to do with it, because it's like we all operate that this out of this mentality that this is our world. Everybody else is just living in it. Like we're the we're the key actors. Right. You know, everybody else is just supporting roles. Right. And there's some truth in that, right? You know, like you are the key actor of your.
You are the center of your own universe.
Yeah.
But not the center of everybody else's.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I think the solution, and we can talk more next. I mean, I would love to talk more next time we record about why it is, whether it's natural, you know, nature versus nurture. You know, is that something that is programmed into us, or is that something that has, you know, we come out of the womb?
Wait, is what necessarily programmed into us?
Like this drama, like seeking drama,
like the addiction to drama.
Yeah, or conflict, whatever, however you would phrase it. And obviously, there's a certain type of conflict we're talking about because, you know, the animals that are seeking, like, you know, worried about being attacked, like that's not the kind of conflict that we're talking about. We're talking about like, I just pictured that couple that we had breakfast over at the, you know, like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, where, you know, one person had an agenda and the other person had a different agenda, and they both agendas could have come together in that moment, but it didn't. And one.
See, that's so. I'm telling you, man, that is so powerful, because you wonder, you say, man, that person. Imagine that scenario where somebody creates dramatic situations because all they know is that that's how it's supposed to be. Like I'm talking like deeply rooted. Yeah. I mean, we can get into the science of it. I mean, let's do that. Let's do some studying, and we'll figure it out. Say what's the literature on this? Because there's answers out there, and maybe some people have different theories and opinions, but the truth is that it's a fact. I witness that particular situation, and I said, man, this was a conscious decision that somebody thinks that this is how it's supposed to be conducted. Like this is how this situation is going to be conducted. It goes against everything that I know of routine and pattern, and they don't know how to behave differently because honestly, they don't know how. I think it's true that some people don't even know how to be happy, or don't let happiness consume them. Because happiness, I think, and you may agree or disagree, but I think happiness is a choice. You can rely on the world's you can rely on happenings to really affect how you feel, which is unavoidable. I mean, well, I should say unavoidable, but it's hard not to. But at the same time, how do you overcome absolute hell? You have to eventually choose that you want to get out of it. So, and then you get out of hell, and then you're at some kind of maybe some neutral place, but then you say, look, I don't want to be just neutral. I want to be happy. I think you can make that choice to feel joy. So we should do let's dig up some literature on it and see what others are saying, so that we don't sound like a bunch of fools. Because look, man, we're talking from our perspective, and we're just two regular guys trying to make sense of things, and we could be, you know, our knowledge could be totally off, or what we think we know could be off. Probably not the case. But anyway, look, I think that'd be awesome. You said you were gonna say something. You were gonna finish something.
Finally. Well, so I think the biggest thing is that love overlooks
that's right. Yeah.
a multitude of wrongs. And when you operate out of that, I mean, my goodness, man, it will change your relationships. You know, when you don't let things bother you,
Yes.
that you have the authority to let bother you or not.
Yes.
And here's the thing. Here's the crux of the whole thing is sometimes you're validated by everyone around you or everyone's standards to be upset or to be angry. But that doesn't mean you have to be angry.
Yes.
You can choose to overlook that wrong. Like, man, this is so simple and like such a tiny example, but I texted you and said I'd be there at 11 or 11:15.
Right.
And then I texted like on my way and I said, "Did you need anything?" And when I got here, you were gone. It didn't even bother me at all. Like, not
Why are you bringing it up then?
not even.
Why are you still bringing it up? I'm just kidding.
I'm still carrying that girl. I'm pissed. No, but you didn't even apologize. Like, I was just like, it didn't even affect. Yeah, dude.
There it is.
Yeah, I was out there for 15 minutes. Are you done?
Oh, that was good. That was good. Didn't even
Bother me. Gosh, man. It's like this guy that's always late, you know? Waits to the last minute. I was like, is he talking about himself? No, but I'm being dead serious. There are times where I do not like being stood up. Or,
What was I saying? We preach best what is most unresolved within us.
I don't know. But, is that a saying?
Yeah, it is a saying, actually. I forget where I read it, but...
But that's, I mean, I know that's such a small example, but I could have, like, first of all, I was like, okay, he had no idea that I was even going to be here at this time. Because generally, I'll text you on my way or getting close.
Yeah, so I'll be honest. When you said 11:15, 11:30, I said, okay, well...
11 to 11:15.
Yeah, I
So
was
to
like,
be specific.
that's a... I was like, well, that's very... That's generic.
General? 11 to 11:15?
I mean, 11 to 11:15 could mean 10:45 to midnight, really.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how you came up with that. But the point is,
You know how these people say, I'll be there in 5 minutes.
no,
And you're like,
no, that's not 5 minutes. I'll be there between or close to.
okay, when you said 11:15, I was like, okay, cool, that's fine. But but he usually texts me like, hey, on my way.
Exactly. We're taking, yeah. My point is, literally, it didn't affect me at all. I was like, okay, that's cool. I'll just sit here and play solitaire. But if I was upset,
Then I have control over your emotions.
and the reality is that I get to choose.
Amen to that. Dude, that right there is... It's profound.
I get it.
It's so simple.
Yep.
But you know how sometimes the simplest things are so hard,
Yep.
and that's huge, man. Is when you take away the power for people's ability to affect your emotions, man. Then, dude, you are like supreme.
So you know what we need to talk about next time is what is so hard about not being upset. What is it in us that
I think you said earlier. It's. I don't know. You said
say
identity or you said expectations. Expectations.
expectations?
It's when things that
And time.
we have a vision of how things are going to work out.
Yep.
Here's how it actually happens. It doesn't align. That pisses us off. And hey, man, that's just not for small things. People might be like, "This is how I was supposed to be at this age, and I was supposed to have and do this." And then I'm not that way. So guess what? What's the outcome? Bitter, resentful, hatred toward the world, all the negative qualities. Or even worse, you just completely gave up and you're totally neutral, which is like I think that might even be worse because maybe you can use your anger and flip it to propel you somewhere. But again, you don't want to operate out of anger because that's not always healthy. But at the same time, what's worse than a person who's has completely given up? I know somebody like that, and it's not pretty.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that apathetic? Like being just not caring about anything. Like that's not a good place to be. But so there's a healthy balance. And I think this book is going to speak to that because it's like what you give a crap about and what you don't give a crap about. And the bottom line is, like, we get to choose what upsets us
Yes.
and what doesn't.
And it seems extremely illogical because if you think about it, if we are primitive monkeys, then we should be completely cause and effect, reaction, response, or what was that term they use? Reactory people. It's like the world affects everything. We see it affects us. We see it affects us. So if we're not to be affected by that, then where are we pulling that from to how to conduct ourselves? And do not be troubled by the ways of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I think that's part of the renewing of your mind is learning how to not be affected by that.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with this idea of love, man, and you know, perspective is huge. I think that's probably the biggest factor in all of it is to have the proper perspective. I mean, I think wisdom, like I remember in Bible school, Bible college, we were talking about our working definitions of wisdom. And I was like, for me, I think it's having God's perspective on, not having like God's perspective on, but God's perspective on my situation right now, you know, and you can have that when like you're talking about being happy. So something that me personally, I've been doing a lot lately, and I've tried to instill it in my kids, is an attitude of gratitude. You know, to be grateful for what you have. And man, you said it last time we recorded about how now things are just natural. They're just normal, you know? And so now it is natural, a knee-jerk reaction for me for like today. Conrad was like, Dad, we have to go to so-and-so, a store, or something like that. It was something that he personally didn't want to do, but me and Chloe were happy about doing. And I was like, without even thinking, I was like, nobody, you get to go here. And, you know, there are times in the day where I've taken him aside and been like, listen, your perspective and your attitude is not right, bud. Like, we don't always get to do everything that you want to do. And you have to, like, not just go along with what your sister wants to do sometimes and just be there. You need to be in a good place with it, you know, because you are asking us to do the same thing when you want to go somewhere that Chloe doesn't want to go. And it's not fun when you know somebody doesn't want to be there and then they show it by their actions and facial, you know, expressions. It's like, man, if you know that you absolutely have to do something, you can either do it with a pissed off attitude or you can do it with a grateful perspective. And it's easier said than done. But I think perspective has a lot to do with how we let things affect us, you know, because, and my point in that, and to wrap it all up, was when, and not always, but when I can overlook somebody's wrongs, one of the first go-tos that I do is, okay, how many times have I put somebody else in that same position? How many times have, you know, how many times have I wronged somebody and been forgiven of it. And so why do I act out of a I'm perfect mentality, and it's the Bible verse of like, why are you trying to get the speck out of your brother's eye when you can't see the plank in your own eye? It's like, first work on that plank.
Right.
And then, like if I would have bitched at you for being 15 minutes late, I guarantee you I would have been late to either our next thing or to somebody else's thing, and been hypocritical.
Right, yeah. So, yeah.
Because I've been late before. So anyway, that's it. So next week, I do want to dive into more about. I think there's a psychology to be learned about why it's hard to overlook something when you are justified and not overlooking it. Like why it's really difficult to overlook something and forgive something when you are so justified and validated by it. So if somebody wrongs you extremely and obviously, and it's so obviously that you got wronged, it's really hard to overlook that, harder than some minor things that you may have been guilty of doing. And as I'm thinking about it, I think it has something to do with the victim mentality. I think that's really the core of what I'm trying to get at. I don't know if it is, but I think that's at the core, is that I think at the core, most of us, if not all of us, or at least a lot of us, like to play the victim.
I would say that I think that's spot on.
Because we talked about the spotlight effect a while back, and real quick, what was that? It was
And say your goodbyes.
Well, it's the spotlight effect. It's you think you are the center of you are the center of your own world. You think you're the center of your own universe, and the world's happening to you. It's like the world and you, rather than having the interconnectivity and that there's something much bigger operating here. And so, man, that point you said, we got a lot to talk about, but we'll wrap it up. I think one of the key things here is drama. Are you addicted to drama? Because you got to really reflect on that. Like, am I addicted to drama, and why? Am I always finding myself in dramatic situations, and do I like it? All right, what are the two things we're talking about next week?
A blanket statement, like, why are humans attracted to drama and conflict?
Okay.
Yep. And that relates to news and TV and movies. So why innately are we that way? And then that might take us farther, but then at some point I'd like to talk about victim, just being the victim. Because I mean, even today as I was driving over here, or at some point, I really thought about I can't remember what it was. It might have been when I was sitting on the porch waiting for you for 15 minutes. But I thought about, like how would I get out of depression again? What was it that got me out of the depression of everything that happened to me? Like, where was the turning point, or the biggest one that I could see? And how could I get somebody else, not me, but like, could somebody else get out of depression through this advice or this and perspective? And really it came down to like when I stopped being the victim, when I stopped playing the victim and stopped saying, woe is me, that's when everything turned around.
Yeah.
And it's not, and that was one of my points, is it's not easy when something like traumatic has happened. Like if you're sexually abused as a kid, you know, and now you grow up and you're at the place that we are, where you're seeking health, and you're at a good place, but you've been effed up for the last 20 years. It's really easy not to want to forgive your parents or to blame them for what they did. It's super easy, and you feel justified for doing it. But until you let go of that, you'll be imprisoned to that anger and bitterness and unforgiveness and all that. And so
The scary thing is that there's no guaranteed age that you get out of it. You could be 75 and still in that. Still in that.
that's what we'll talk about next.
Yeah. All right. Well, talk to you next time. Bye.